Okay, here we have a few knives in my knife drawer. There are different handles and blades are attached differently, and some of these knives could be, and some of these knives preferably shouldn't be kosher. Let's start with these two. These two knives should not be kosher. Let me explain why. First of all, this has a plastic handle, and in many opinions, plastic can't be kosher. Also, the blade, the way it connects into the handle, leaves gaps. It's a poor construction, and things might squeeze in, and therefore it can't be properly cleaned. As we said earlier, you can't kosher anything until it's perfectly cleaned. A knife like this also, if you bend the knife, you see there's movement, and there's a slight gaps right over here where it opens up, and it's even, you'd see things over there. Therefore, this knife can't be cleaned properly, therefore it can't be kosher. Then you'll have these knives. These knives, this is a professional knife. There's no gaps whatsoever, very, very sturdy construction, but it's a plastic handle, and there are those that say you can't kosher plastic for Pesach. So although these knives are very good quality, still there will be opinions that say you shouldn't kosher these for Pesach. These two knives are good construction of knives, and they have wooden handles, and there's no gaps. As you can see here clearly, there's no movement at all between the blade. This could be cleaned, therefore it could be koshered. The same is true for this knife over here. This is even better because there's a smooth surface here where nothing could get trapped. I would strongly recommend not to go ahead and buy just some cheap knives for Pesach. There are 10 meals to prepare over Pesach. You really need a good quality knife, so that's not the place to try to save money. Buy yourself a couple of good quality knives, and it'll make your job much simpler. Okay, let's go on to another couple of smallwares before we actually start koshering them. Let's just open up my silverware drawer. So here we have our set of meat silverware. As you can see, single construction. There's no handles separate from the metal parts, from the top and the bottom. And this is you could see and you could check that it's clean. Therefore, these kind of silverware for sure is no problem, and you can kosher. However, something like this, where I don't even know what material this might be, but you'll have to be careful that everything here gets clean. And I'm not sure what this material is. I would not kosher this for Pesach. And the thrift cloth, make sure you get a new thrift cloth for Pesach. And I have, I'm going to show you that in a minute. I have some more cloths over there. Now we have the assorted drawer with all kinds of stuff. Okay? So, although wood is a material that can be kosher for Pesach, most things are practically speaking not kosherable because you don't have you have to have a smooth surface. It can't have cracks. It can't have crevices. It can't have bumps. You would have to take a piece of sandpaper and smooth all this down. It's usually totally not worth it. Plastic is not kosher for Pesach. Therefore, all of these plastic items would not be kosher. You would have to buy a new one. Even something like this. So it's metal and it's wood. So therefore, maybe you could be kosher for Pesach, but it can't because, as you can see, there are gaps here in this construction, and things could be in there, and therefore this would not be able to be kosher. Basically, most of the things you'll find in your assorted tool drawer are not kosherable for Pesach, unless it's just metal, really all metal construction. So this would not be able to be kosher. This one here, all metal, so this could be koshered. This could not be koshered if it's used on a grill outside, but this is not used on a grill in my own home. I know that, therefore I know this could be koshered. Okay. Let's begin and start kosher. So I happen to have a glove that you don't have, probably, a thick glove that will protect my hand when I kosher. Of course, I'm not usually koshering a couple of pieces of silverware. We could be koshering thousands of pieces of silverware. Therefore, we need to have special gloves that allow our hands to go into boiling water and not get hurt. Like I mentioned earlier, if someone wants to borrow, we have gloves and we have kettles that we will make available to members of the Dallas community. We'll have small windows of time where you can be able to borrow that equipment. If you don't have gloves, it's still not a problem because I'll show you an easy way to do it. Okay, here we have our pot. The pot's been boiling. It's an all metal construction, and these are rubber handles, and these could be koshered. It has to be clean. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing the koshering of the smallwares, show you how to kosher that, and to put it into the cold water, and then we'll talk about some of the other pots I have here on the sink. So, our pot, water is boiling, and as you can see, there's a rolling boil to the water. The simplest way of koshering, if you don't have a very large amount of silverware, is really to fill up a large pot. If the pot is already kosher l'Pesach, then that's great. And if it's a chametz pot that you're koshering, you'll have to clean it, wait 24 hours. The pot has to get koshered. Assuming it's your largest pot, you don't have a pot bigger than it to dip into, for you to dip it into, just bring it up to the very top and have the water come to a rolling boil. The water will boil over the sides. That pot is then kosher. Then, if you have silverware, if you don't need to go ahead and change the water in the middle, and you have enough silverware that will fit into a pot, I would recommend not taking anything out of the pot. Just keep throwing and throwing silverware, more silverware into the pot, and eventually, assuming there is still space in the pot, and the water keeps and stays and is maintained as a rolling boil, that's the easiest way of doing it. So, as you throw in the silverware, just check to make sure that they're actually clean. To keep safe, people think they're safe by throwing the silverware into the pot. That's actually the least safe thing you can do. The best thing you can do is to bring the silverware really close to the water and slowly put it in. Okay, check them for cleanliness and drop them in. Now, you can keep doing that and the water will get full, the pot will get more and more full. As you can see, the water is still at a rolling boil. A few pieces of silverware is not going to stop it from being at a rolling boil. After you put in, depends on how big your pot is and how high your fire is. But as long as the water is still at a rolling boil, you keep opening your drawer, you keep putting in more and more silverware. If that works for you, you just fill it up, and when all of your koshering is done, if you have enough water, then that's the simplest way of doing it. If you have to remove things and you need to go ahead and continue to kosher, you'd either have to borrow one of these gloves, or you can just reach your hand in. Of course, you have to do it carefully. If you have the right tools, you're not going to burn your hand. And then the silverware, whatever's in the pot, will have to come out. And now you can put it into your freshly koshered sink. You put it into the sink, and it's important to turn on cold water. You have to, that's part of the kosher, the final part of the koshering process. It's not just to cool down whatever it is that you kosher, but that's part of the koshering process. You let it run under cold water, and that finishes the kosher. Let's continue and talk about different pots. We spoke about the silverware, what can be kosher, what can't be kosher, and knives and smallwares. Let's talk about pots. A pot like this is going to be the easiest to kosher for Pesach. All metal construction, no plastic handles. Although you have a rolled lip on the pot, you need to clean it very carefully, and special attention needs to be to make sure that it's clean, but it can be cleaned. It's very sneaky. If you can see here, this looks like it might be clean, but it's not. You see there's dirt over here. If you scrape it, look at what comes up. This was totally used to be a clean pot, but you have to make sure that all of it is scraped off and it becomes clean. Special attention always needs to be around the handles, because that's where things tend to accumulate. Make sure all the handles are clean. After the bottom of the pot, the top of the pot is all clean, then this pot can be immersed into the larger pot, and it can be koshered. Only thing in kosher is regular metal, something like this, which is, I'm not even sure what material this was called, but this is not regular metal, and this pot should not be kosher. And then you have your regular standard pot with plastic handles. So this is problem number one. It has a plastic handle. It is plastic, and therefore some say it shouldn't be kosher. Problem number two is, although you think that what could be wrong with a plastic handle, let's just remove the plastic handle, and let's see what might be a problem with a plastic handle. There's a screw, regular standard screwdriver. Alright, let's see what we got over here. Oh, okay, well maybe we shouldn't take out those handles. Alright, now you see why it's a problem taking off plastic white. Now you see why it's important to remove the plastic handles before you try to kosher it. So, but a pot like this, it's a nice big pot. It has metal handles, and it has a rubber metal handles and a rubber thing here, so that one's totally kosherable. These pots come in smaller ones, and this would also, you would also be able to dip it into a larger pot. This would not be a problem to kosher a pot like this for Pesach. Okay, let's talk about the actual stove and oven. There are a few parts. There's the stove top, there's the grates, there's the area under the grate. Sometimes you have a contiguous surface with grates, and other times you just have the enamel surface like you'll have on the other stove over the stove top over there. For a stove like this, these grates need to be kosher. The best way to clean these grates is just to throw these into a self-clean oven when you clean the oven. But I don't have the problem of this. Sometimes these are rubber fieselach on the bottom, little rubber feet on the bottom, so the thing shouldn't make noise when it comes down. But that's just too hot to touch. Yeah. So these over here as well don't have any little rubber pieces, so therefore you don't have to worry about this going into the oven and getting ruined. But I think it's worth sacrificing those little rubber pieces. You can try pulling them off. Half the times they'll come off, and other times it'll just break in your hand. But the best thing to do with these grates is to put them into your self-clean oven. The area underneath has to be thoroughly cleaned. These things here should come off and go into the self-clean oven as well. This is a sealed burner, so nothing falls through here. This whole area should be thoroughly cleaned and covered with foil. So clean this area here, cover with foil, self-clean the tops, self-clean the grates, and then you're good to go. Make sure that you don't cover the vent. Under here is the vent, as you can see down here, and you have to make sure that sometimes the vent is in the door, sometimes the vent is out over here. In this oven comes out over here. Make sure you don't cover that, or you're going to have trouble on Yom Tov. Then let's go to the oven. The oven itself is easy. The oven itself is a self-clean oven. Most ovens today are self-clean oven. So let's go through the oven. As you can see here, there's black area over there. That black burnt really doesn't have to come off, but the areas next to it that's brown does come off, and will have to be cleaned. All this will come off during you running your self-clean cycle. As you can see, the oven is pretty clean, but there are still spots all around. Care needs to be taken in the fan. In a commercial kitchen, that back plate easily is removed. You don't have that in a residential kitchen, but again, since you're self-cleaning it shouldn't be a problem. So great, everything gets self-cleaned, so there's no problem. However, it's not exactly so simple. As you see here, this is a gasket, and the only part that self-cleans is from the inside of this gasket, but anything on the outside of this gasket will not be self-cleaned. So the spot where they have this groove on your door, on your frame, here's where the gasket is. Anything from the gasket inside gets self-cleaned, from the gasket outside does not. So care has to be taken to clean all the way around the doors outside of the self-clean gasket. And most importantly, down here, as you can see, between the door and the oven, there's always going to be schmutz. It's not a question if there's going to be, the question is how much there's going to be. And all that has to be cleaned. It's not easy to get down over there. That has to be cleaned, and that does not get self-cleaned. Especially in the hinges over here, there's always going to be schmutz and gunk. For this, I will tell you that, degreaser is your friend, easy off, oven cleaner, spray that down, follow the directions, wear gloves, wear a mask if you have to, make sure you stay safe. But the oven cleaners and these chemicals go a long way in doing most of the hard job for you. And the glass over here, some people say the glass is not kosher for Pesach, and therefore the glass in your oven also shouldn't be kosher for Pesach, even though the oven is self-clean. And there are therefore some people that will say you should cover your door with foil in order that this should not be part of the oven during Pesach. And in all cases, you should not place anything on the oven door on Pesach. Even if you don't cover it, you certainly shouldn't put anything onto the oven door. And you probably, I personally, I don't know if I'm going to cover it or not, but definitely there are those that suggest to cover it.